So good evening, everyone. This is a web-based meeting. We're operating under the following procedures. The session is being audio recorded, just like every other CCP meeting. Please be advised that today we're also recording video of the proceedings to ensure sound quality. Default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute. Commissioners and staff will generally remain on mute except when speaking or voting. Applicants and members of the public and pretty much everyone tonight, we ask that you have their video off. We do not have a public hearing tonight. If you are speaking at this meeting and have an exhibit to submit to the commission, which was not distributed in advance of the meeting, with the rest of the materials, please indicate that you wish to submit something. You'll need to provide a description of it so that the commission and all members of the public may review it. In addition, you'll be required to email it to me or send me a photograph of it, and I'll add to the permanent collection on the city's website. And members of the public may only speak during an open public hearing. If a member of the public speaks outside of a public hearing or creates an audio or video disruption, they may be manually ejected from the meeting upon recommendation of staff or the chair. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Les.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'll go ahead and open this meeting. It's a special meeting, Thursday, June 25th, 2020. So we call to order roll call and seating of alternatives. I think we have everybody will be seated. Does that sound right, Dan? Yeah.
I think so, yep.
Me, Jason, Mike.
Yes.
Singh.
You have 6 people.
Everybody will be seated tonight then. On this issue.
You normally would seat 5, and I think you have 6 of you here right now. Jason, Kathy, Les, Michael Lahan, Jason. Oh, Jason's on here twice. I'm sorry. And Singh. So sorry, it's just that Jason was on here twice on the list. So you have 5.
Okay.
Yes,
everyone's so everybody is seated then to vote on the issue. Okay, so that's called to order. Roll call and seating of alternatives. Everybody will be voting on the issue. Everybody is seated. Approval of minutes for May 28, 2020 and June 16, 2020. June 16, 2020, we tabled at the last meeting because we didn't have enough people at that meeting that had been at the June 16th meeting. So
no.
We will entertain a motion.
So moved.
For the May 28th meeting minutes, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, for the May 28th meeting. I move approval.
Thank you.
We have a second?
Second that motion.
Okay.
So that was Michael and Jason. Thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Do you have any errors or omissions? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition or abstentions? There being none, let's go to the, what was the other date? The agenda's off of the
The next date of the minutes is from June 16th.
June 16th. Okay, so let's, we'll entertain a motion to approve the June 16th meeting minutes.
I'll entertain the motion to approve June 16th meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, who did the second?
Michael.
Mike.
I did this. Yeah, Michael did the second.
Yeah, okay. And all those in favor, any errors or omissions? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed or abstentions? Okay, there being none, let's go to the next section of the agenda. Communications.
None.
None.
No communications. New business, there is none on the agenda. Old business, site development plan number 1044, 3 North C Street. Site plan review for the multifamily development and installation of associated sites, improvements, and amenities. Application and property of the Hills at Riverview LLC, Assessors Map 39, Block 1, Lot 93, Zone Multifamily. This was tabled from 6/16/2020, Commission on the City Plan meeting. And so we are back to complete and look at some of the questions that we had from the last meeting.
Sure, Les, if you don't mind, can I jump in?
Absolutely, Deanne, go right ahead.
Okay, so at the last meeting on the 16th, we had gone over a few of the comments from my first memo, and there was some questions regarding the architectural style of the buildings and sidewalks and things. And since that time, the applicant's engineer and architect have worked diligently on the plan and have revised it according to your comments, the city engineers, and my comments. And so I'm going to turn it over to Brandon to show you the updated site plan, and then I'll come back and speak about my memo to you. But I'm going to let Brandon take over from here.
Okay, sounds good. Go right ahead,
Thank
Brandon.
you.
Very good. Can everybody hear me? I don't have any video, but I want to make sure.
Yes, I can hear you.
Excellent.
Yes.
All right. For the record, Brandon Hanfield with the Yannick River Consultants. Also on the line, I believe, is our Darwin Gebby and Alex Gebby with the applicant, the Hills at Riverview LLC, also the owners. And I believe Mark Block and Kathy Lacombe are also on the call. Any questions or chime in? I'll briefly go through the changes and focus on those changes. If there's any questions on existing conditions or other details, I'd be happy to jump into them, but to briefly focus on the changes. So Dan has up the first plan, which is our revised sheet number 2. And in general, on this plan, the buildings have not changed, the driveways have not changed. The parking in general has not changed. So what we're focused on really on this plan, you'll see sidewalks, and we can get into the next sheet to really discuss it more in detail, but we did add sidewalks for phase 1 and phase 2, and those sidewalks connect the buildings within each of those phases to a public right of way. So on phase 1, you'll see building D and C have a sidewalk along the main access drive that leads pedestrians all the way down to the southeast corner, which connects to the existing sidewalk in the northerly shoulder of Route 97. And that sidewalk does connect with the bus stop in that area. Those sidewalks also connect the full frontage of every building. So that was part of the conversation we had last time, is providing access to the fronts of all the buildings. So what you see is interconnection from that main sidewalk to each unit in their front door. Pretty much the same, actually, while we're talking the sidewalk of phase 1, at the northwesterly limit, you'll see a crosswalk across the main road, and that crosswalk, zoomed in right there by the word phase 1, that leads to a recreational amenity that's part of phase 1. And that's a trail into the selective cleared woods. But we can get more direct later. Moving into phase 2, same situation. We added sidewalks along the main access drive from the north limit of North 3rd Avenue. And that leads northerly along the driveway and interconnects sidewalks for each unit that also leads to the front of the units. You will also see a wider sidewalk that feeds to the east, and that sidewalk provides accessible entrances to a community space that will have a dog park and playground. While we're on the recreation, I don't know, Dan, can you go to the next sheet 3? It's a little, I think it's a higher scale. It's about the same, but we can start in phase 2. So we discussed briefly, as part of the sidewalk interconnection and pedestrian interconnection, was improving the amenities for every grouping of building. So starting in phase 2, since we're on it, you'll see the community space in the northeast corner between G and F has gotten significantly larger. And that area there will be created to provide a relatively flat dog park and an area for a playground to be constructed. And the reason for the wider sidewalk there is to make sure that everybody within the development can access that area and the guidelines. Further to the right, you'll see in magenta a small trail that leads from the community space into the wooded area. That again provides a meandering natural surface path into that wooded area to allow for more of a passive recreation such as hiking or picnics. Moving down below E and F, that recreation area has not changed. But what we did change is it's not included in the compliance of community space or recreation area because it's only 20 feet wide, not 30. But we did keep that as it does provide view sheds over the development towards the Chautauqua River and the Peninsula. Moving down the page or south into phase 1, again, that in magenta, you'll see the natural surface trail that leads into the lower portion of the wooded area. We'll discuss it later as part of Deanna's recommendation, but there was a recommendation to connect the trail between phase 1 and phase 2 in the woods, and that is something we can do. Moving further south, buildings D and C, in general, that community space is the same. We did kind of confine it to the east of building C and D instead of wrapping it around the back, and that was because we added the sidewalks. What you'll see there is we labeled it to show that it does have sufficient width to be a usable recreation area, and that'll be a combination of a natural surface grass and landscaped area for play, as well as a patio or durable surface area around that existing tree that will provide view sheds of the river and a grilling area and congregation area. Moving east down to buildings A and B, we added another community space adjacent or between building A and Route 97. Again, that's wide enough to exceed your requirements for usable area. And that provides, again, a natural surface area around an existing specimen tree that we will be saving. And then a durable surface area that will provide a congregation space. Any questions on recreation while we're on it, or we can move on to landscaping improvements?
I had a question.
Go ahead.
You're going to combine a playground and a dog park in the same area?
It's not, there'll be a fenced dog park. It'll be separate from the playground. The area we provide is sufficient for both. That's what we're providing.
Okay, I wasn't sure if there would be a sanitary problem with the dogs. You know, how they go to the bathroom all over the place right next to where the kids would be playing.
No, we definitely fence them off and separate them, but it is nice for kids to be able to play with their parent in tow and a dog as well. So
Sure.
we try to keep them close.
Okay.
I have a question about the recreation space in the front.
Yep.
And I kind of apologize because I didn't really look at this that closely. So how far is that from Route 97 and what is the slope like there?
So it is, you see the front yard setback, which is 30 feet. It's
30 feet.
It's behind the front yard setback. And the durable surface area is approximately 35 to 40 feet. I can get an exact measurement for you. But the slope there generally matches what you see on the adjacent development in front of building 100. So it's a relatively, 8%, 9% slope that comes up from the road. And
Okay.
we're trying to, so the community space area, we're grading flat. It'll be about 2 or 3%.
All right. So,
Go ahead.
so
sorry.
from the road to in the area of the buffer, it's about 8 or 9% grade. Is that correct?
Yes.
And is there a fence around that?
Currently, we just show it as landscaped.
So if kids were playing with a ball there and the ball went down that slope into the road, I would be a little concerned with that.
Or a car could veer off the road by accident.
So that the space itself is well outside the DOT clear zone. which would be about 11 feet off of the shoulder. So any vehicle would have to make a atrocious maneuver to go 35, 40 feet off of the road through landscaping. So the traffic wise, I'm not overly concerned. I understand the point about kids play, and that's why this area here is less focused on a flat play area for children and more of a congregation space to overlook the Shetucket River. For those that know the area, if you go across the street, there's sitting areas that overlook the river with tables and chairs and umbrellas.
So it slopes down to the road,
Yep.
but I still am concerned because I know that, I mean, kids love to play and it's not a huge area, but I can see that happening. I don't know. That's just my comment.
No, I appreciate the comment and the thought. And I'm trying to communicate right now to see if we can possibly incorporate a fence. I don't think a fence will be necessary for the durable surface area. Again, that's more of a patio. But the area around the tree, perhaps there's something we can incorporate there.
What do you have? I see some small vegetation. I mean, it looks like, what do you have there?
So around the durable surface, there are, those are shrub dogwood. They're called Arctic Fire. So they have a red color all winter, and in the summer they have a soft leafy texture. So it provides a physical and visible or visual buffer between the community space and the grass. The area around the tree is really to provide a shade area around a very large tree and trying to maintain that tree. So, I'm one to say I don't think the focus of that community space is children's playing. The other areas we provide, even within phase one, the one between C and D is graded flat and grass. And that would be more appropriate. And I don't want to lose the sight that there's not a huge child population in these developments. They're only 2 bedrooms. But there may be a few children, and we acknowledge that, hence the playground, the dog park, and the space we provided on C and D.
And is it possible for you just to extend that line of trees, those dogwood trees? I mean, they're running around the whole property and suddenly they stop. Can they just continue on to where the sidewalk is coming down onto the Route 97?
Yeah, I certainly think landscaping would be a more appropriate thing to minimize children going towards the road. I think we could extend the landscaping.
I think that would be a big help. And I think it would be more aesthetically pleasing than seeing a fence not being really maintained by anybody.
I think we can look at the landscaping there and see if we can incorporate some bushes. The difficulty is, again, that tree is relatively large and casts a pretty good shadow. So the sun will be limited to the area, but I think we can get something in there to at least make access difficult, but not prohibit it.
Well, which way is it casting a shadow towards the road?
I would be right, well, depending on the time of day, but mostly up.
Mostly up, right.
Yeah.
So I don't think there'd be much shade over those shrubs.
Well, I think it's something we should consider, something in that area to prevent the kids from running out into the road or the balls from going out into the road or whatever. But I think personally, I'd like to consider something there.
I agree with Kath.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll keep that in mind as we move through the rest of the project then. Okay. Brandon, go ahead and keep going if you're.
Sure thing. So I believe we got into landscaping.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I just interrupt one more time?
Absolutely.
Sure.
I don't think you need to hug the area that is going to be used for the recreation zone. You could actually move it down into the, the building area. I mean, the building setback line, so that it is outside of the area of the tree. Could you do that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to figure out how we can do that now. We can certainly do it. The one thing I was cautious, we want to balance the height of that vegetation and the visibility of the rec space. We truly tried to get it functional as overlooking the river, and we don't want to obstruct that view across.
Yeah. Well, if you get some shrubs that are not too high, you can do that. But I mean, that was just a question. So, all right. Thank you.
No problem. So moving landscape, we did add a significant amount of landscaping in front of building A. We preserved a large tree, went out there and made sure it's there. As you work your way northwest through phase 1, I guess we'll start to the south of building A and B. We added a row of screening trees between building A and B and the TVCCA property. So those will be, a visual buffer between this property and the commercial. And part of our request tonight is that you consider the reducing the 15-foot buffer, landscaping buffer requirement to 5 feet, noting that we're fully planting that area with screening trees, and it will be landscaped up to the proposed driveways. Going around building B, there was a request to reduce the scale of the graded slope behind building B in between the recreation area above it. So we did add some screening trees in there as well. They're spaced a little further apart, because we don't want to actually block the view, but they are there to kind of limit the view and provide some vertical scale. As you work your way up towards building C and D, you'll note the 2 trees that we previously showed as being preserved are still going to be preserved. And we tried to incorporate them into the landscape. The rest of the landscaping for C and G is generally the same. Although we did acknowledge to the down right where his cursor is that that area there is vegetated, and we plan on preserving that vegetation. We pointed out the significant trees, but the undisturbed area below that will also be preserved. As you work your way around C and D to the west, we added some screening trees between building D and the existing residential property. So again, there, I actually met with the homeowner when I was out there looking at the trees, and we discussed the visual and, explained to him we'd add some trees in there because there is a perception that that's part of their property. So they appreciated that. And then also the trees, the maple trees that exist to the south of their property will all be preserved along the property line. Another thing we did add at the northwest corner of building D was a shade tree. That's a maple tree that will provide a shady large tree entrance to the development. Along the phase 1, phase 2 line, at the request of Deanna and Dan, we went out and looked at what specimen trees exist that we can preserve. You'll see just to the left of the phase 1 and phase 2 words, or 2 trees there that we can preserve that are significant and aren't going to be impacted by grading. To the right or east of those 2 trees, there's no clearing limit per se, but that is going to be maintained in its natural state, which would basically is basically like a prairie with new growth cedar trees. And then when you get to the right or east of the phase 2, phase 1 line or words, the vegetation picks back up into mature woods. So again, we want to acknowledge that there will be an undisturbed buffer between phase 1 and phase 2. Working to the west, again, along the phase 2, phase 1 line, you'll see we added some screening trees right there. That is to provide a visual buffer between the existing houses on North C Street and the new development. Again, at the request of Dan and Deanna. And then once we get into the phase 2 development, we did add a few red maple trees. They're called, I forgot the actual special name, but they have a really brilliant red color in the fall. We added one at the entrance to kind of mimic the entrance to phase 1. And we added one over by the playground and dog park area at the end of the driveway. The rest of the internal landscaping, foundation plantings, and flowering trees is generally the same. That covers most of the changes. Happy to discuss any questions or provide additional information on the design if you'd like.
Okay, any questions?
Les, would you like me to go over my memo?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I had done a memo last week, but I updated it to memorandum number 2. So I'm going to quickly hit on all the points if you haven't had a chance to read it. It's not that long. So, so the first comment is just so everyone knows that the unit development, they eliminated the 3-bedroom units and now it's all 2-bedroom units, which makes it easier to convert those handicap accessibility units, which were the 3 ones, now to 2. So the whole unit is 7 buildings and they're all 2-bedroom units. The second comment is the State Historical Preservation Office archaeologist now recommends a reconnaissance survey be completed prior to construction. Brandon responded they do have someone on board that they're going to be looking at it. We have a memo from him too, but my comments are in response to his memo, so this is the most updated. Should a general permit be required from DEP, which may be the case, we wanted a copy of that for our files and for Public Works for our record keeping. The light photometric for the project must be submitted, but we're okay with doing that as a condition of approval prior to filing the Mylars. We don't think it's going to be an issue based on the light fixtures that they're proposing and where they're proposing, but we do want that. The landscaping sheet was what was requested. There wasn't one before. It significantly enhanced the proposal, included those preserving of those large specimen trees. I noticed that there is no detail for protection of those trees during construction, so I'd like a detail included on sheet 8 of 10. Then the elevation view for building C, we have updated architecturals, and we could show those in a couple minutes too for you. Because what Kathy did, the architect Kathy, is she updated them so you'd see how the elevations actually look. And so building C is the only one that's missing dimensions on the architectural plan. And also in response to that too, the ZEO also responded to an inquiry by Brandon Hamfield, which was about the proposed buildings heights to make sure that we were comfortable with the height of the building, that it did meet the regulations. And he has confirmed that it does meet our regulations, how we define height. And they also fall beneath that 25-foot maximum height, which would require additional buffering, so they don't need to do that. Then we talk about section 6.4.5.5, which says no certificate of occupancy shall be issued unless the usable recreation area has been provided and developed, so that we have that for the occupants of those first dwelling units in phase 1. So if you could quickly go back to the plan, Dan, real quick, so I can show where I'm recommending a change in the line. So where the phase 1 and phase 2 line right now is, and it kind of bumps up towards that tree, see where the cat, Dan, do you see where phase 1 and phase 2 kind of comes to a point? Go further over. Nope, on that line with your little Go right to where it meets that point. Keep going to the right there. So if we actually would like the phase line to go there and go north, Dan, if you could move the page a little bit, and yeah, and actually just kind of connect at the same angle of the, including all that open space recreation area. So at the same angle of that tree line, Dan, so we go from that point and following there. I'd like that to be all part of phase one, and that trail that's proposed on that southern side there, that would go just into the tree line, and then during phase two, that other northern trail, natural surface trail, would loop around and actually meet phase one, because we don't want people walking up from phase one all the way up into that other construction area if it's under development. But as soon as that's done and ready to go, we want to be able to allow people to access through that trail, go through the woods and get to that playground. So, so Dan, if you go back to my memo real quick. So again, so I'm asking that phase line be changed. I spoke with Brandon about these changes, and he can confirm that he is on board with these. So the natural, again, that northern natural trail be completed and connected to the lower trail during that phase two. And then the bond estimates were fine for the phases, reviewed by the city engineer, and he feels that they're adequate. They decided, one of our questions was about utilizing those curbside roll-off containers, because it's been an issue in the past with people just leaving them out all the time in some of these developments, and we receive a lot of complaints about the aesthetics of that. So their response to that comment was, a requirement in the lease is going to be that the bins are located curbside for no more than 24 hours, because all these units have garages and outside storage isn't permitted there. So we'd like a copy of the lease with that language in it, so that can help us provide help when we want or need to resolve any potential compliance issues, and we can just be in contact with the owners of the property if this is becomes an issue, because we do get a lot of phone calls about the trash containers on other sites. And then number 10 is about the buffer strip that Brandon talked about. 6.4.6.1 requires a buffer strip and specific landscaping requirements when parking is closer than 15 feet to the property line. However, the commission may alter that requirement when requested by the applicant. It's not a waiver, it's just an altering of it, and when it's in harmony and warranted by the regulations. So I'm going to quickly just read that section for you. It's very short. This requirement may be altered by the commission on the city plan when conditions so warrant and would be in harmony with the intent to effectively screen vehicular parking from adjacent residences. But in no case shall the landscape buffer strip be less than 5 feet wide. I think with the enhanced landscaping plan, they've done a really good job as far as buffering any of the parking from the adjacent property. So I think it is, I think that it would meet the intent to go ahead and reduce that request to reduce that buffer down to 5 feet in the area that it needs to be. And then what I'm saying is, prior to making a decision on this application, there's some considerations in the section 7.5.6, which is their section for site plan, that to make sure that it's been satisfied. And they have met all the regulations at this point. You need to state the reasons for approval on the record, and you can also just say that it complies with our site plan requirements. I'd suggest that that should the application be considered for approval, that it be based on those revised building elevations and floor plans that we just received today and yesterday, and that was submitted, as well as the testimony that was presented by the applicant, and that the following instructions integral to the application are recommended herein. And I've added another one during this discussion, but so the standard ones, I'll read it again to you. So the approval will expire in 5 years unless an extension has been granted by the commission, that the city's required signature block, and the letter of approval goes on the front page, but the signature block on all sheets of the revised plan set, 6 signed and embossed sealed paper copies, 2 Mylars of the final set be submitted. The Mylar must include the red indelible ink, and the name of the producer and process. And the plans to be revised includes item 5, 6, and 7 of this memo. Those are items that needed to be changed on the plans. The photometric plan for the lighting be provided to the CEO for review and approval prior to filing of the Mylars, and that after the filing of the Mylars, a zoning permit shall be issued prior to any land disturbance activities. The following be provided to the planning office prior to issuance of a zoning permit, and these include the copy of the lease prohibiting the outside storage and trash and recycling bins for outside for more than 24 hours, the archaeologist report for the reconnaissance survey, and Dan, go to the next page. And submission of the required erosion and sediment control bonds, and then the amounts are there. $53,800 for phase 1 and $67,800 for phase 2. It gives those, and then a copy of the DEP general permit if it's required for stormwater and dewatering of wastewater for construction. Brandon said they may not have 5 acres at a time opened up, but if they do need that, we want a copy. Typical that modifications of the approval plan be reviewed by the zoning enforcement officer prior to anything occurring, and it might require it going back to the commission. We want a pre-construction meeting with planning, public works, and NPU. E&S controls have to be installed and inspected by the ZEO before any land disturbance. No certificate of occupancy shall be issued until the trail up to and into the wooded passive recreation area has been provided and developed as to be available for the use of the occupants of the dwelling units, because that's that area that is considered their usable recreation area. All the proposed improvements have to be completed in accordance with the plan, or bonds have to be posted for those improvements in accordance with the regulations. That the commission may require as-built or certification by a licensed engineer or land surveyor should it be deemed necessary by the city to demonstrate compliance with any aspects of this approval. And I have one more that I was just writing to myself, actually two. One of them is that the access, utility, maintenance, grading, and construction easements shown on the plan, that the legal documents be prepared and provided to the city for review, and that they get filed prior to the filing of the Mylars. And then the commission can discuss if they want to extend that landscaping along the east side of the community space below, I think that's building A. Yeah, building A. Those are the other comments that I have. Otherwise, the applicant has done a terrific job with the proposal as far as we're concerned staff-wise, and has been accommodating to all of our concerns and comments on this application. The city engineer's comments have all been met. And he sent an email that said that, and we can show those to you if you need. But right now, I can report that his comments have been met.
Okay.
Any more questions for me?
I was thinking that prior to the issuance of a CO, you allow them to bond things that are not completed. Is that correct?
Yes, but if it's not, we wouldn't let certain things happen, Kathy, if they're health and safety type of
Right.
things. So like you have to have the roadways and the sidewalks and those kind of things
Yeah.
we would
Okay,
require.
that's all.
But if-
That's all
yeah.
I wanted to know. And is that in the regulations? I don't remember.
It is in the regs, and it's actually in one of my in my recommendations for the motions. It's included in those.
Okay, good. We're good.
May I?
So does anyone have questions? Why don't we look at the architectural plans real quick?
Yeah,
And
I'd like to
Kathy,
do
maybe
that.
No.
can she go over those? Singh, did you have a question? Oh,
Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Good evening. This is Kathy Lacombe from KML Architects. Hope you're all doing well tonight. The intent of the elevations and the layouts of the unit was in direct response to being sensitive to the surrounding areas, because the buildings would be perceived both from the green areas that are shown on the site plan, as well as from the roadways and the adjacent properties. So to try and incorporate some the gable elements, as well as the residential feel and the mill style, as well as New England, one of the New England style of construction. One of the areas that was extremely important and has been through the developments that P&D has done throughout the years is the extension of a living space by incorporating a porch or a deck area that becomes an extension not only of the living area, but it also becomes a porch and a convenient area to access the property, to access the living unit from the property, through children, dogs, what have you, so they don't have to, they can leave their, as I said before, their muddy boots and other things on the porch before they enter the living area. It also becomes an exterior social area, and the potential for interaction with the neighbors is heightened versus just going in and out and not having that opportunity. So I don't know if there's any other questions because you can't see the other side of the elevations. If you want to pan down. You can see the back elevations where there is an entry from that area onto a deck. There's a couple steps in some places to accommodate the grades. In other areas, it may end up being that they're actually on grade. So this is one of the typical, we call it rear elevation, but the intent was not to have it really be the rear of the building. It was also to incorporate some of the front elements that you might see on them.
Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy.
What is the vertical line between the second floor and the first floor? What is that?
The vertical, you mean the horizontal banding?
The horizontal banding with the vertical, right, with the vertical lines.
The horizontal banding is just a change in material or perhaps a siding style, because that's also where there is an overhang from the second level. And the dotted vertical lines, those are actually delineate the units.
Oh, no. I was, the horizontal line that has the little vertical. Yeah. Okay, that's all I was wondering. Yes. Yeah. So that's just going to be vertical siding.
It's a change in material.
Oh, what is it going to be?
Well, it could be a siding. It could be a fiber board. You know, those detailed decisions haven't been made. But again, that's an area where those gables are, where there is a cantilever. So the idea was just to break up that element.
Okay.
Dan, move the page down so you can see the cantilever, if you don't mind.
Oh, you can't. Yeah, you can see it on the front side, on the garage side. Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you, Kathy.
You're quite welcome.
Okay. Any other questions for Kathy? Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Nice job.
Yeah. That was nice.
So if the commission is comfortable, the first thing I think they should do is talk firstly if they're comfortable with altering that buffer from 15 to 5 feet. And if you could bring the site plan back up again, Dan. And I think it's, down there in that area is where it gets, and you can see this. So it's down around building A and building B. And that's really where, that's pretty much, Brandon, is that correct? Those are the areas where the altering is necessary?
Yeah, that's where the landscaping for the TVCCA goes right up to the property line. So by cutting the trees down, we can add back in the buffer.
All right, then I would move that we waive that line to the 5 feet request.
Okay, we have a
So can we use, Michael, instead of waive, can you use the word alter, that we can reduce and alter the 15-foot requirement down to 5?
Okay, then the motion is that we alter or reduce the buffer strip down to 5 feet.
This is saying, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
What types of trees are those? I know that you said there were some, what are they? Dogwood ones, but what are the other ones? They're evergreen?
Yeah, those are called whitey green giant. So they're deer resistant species that gets to 10-foot diameter or 12-foot diameter pretty quickly.
Okay. All right, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Is there any opposition or abstentions? Hearing none, that has been approved.
Do you mind if I add the reasons, just so that with the reasons that I wrote, that I read before, that that's in harmony with the intent of the regulations?
Yeah, that was part of my motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and then the next thing, what I would ask, if you make a motion, if you even just, since you may or may not have my memo in front of you, you could refer to, make a motion in accordance with number 11, which is, so you don't have to read anything off. You can just say the conditions that were stated in item 11 of my memo, and including also the easement documents and extending that landscaping along the east side of the community space closest to, below Building A and closest to Route 97.
Deanna, would you mind if we discuss one item?
Absolutely, go ahead, I just wanted to put that out there, yes, go
Sorry to
ahead.
interject. It's related to the certificate of occupancies for the buildings within each phase and the completion of the.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
So it is not bullet number, sorry, I'm trying to move.
Dan, can you show the site plan? So what are you asking? I'm sorry.
It's your comment number 7.
Comment number 7, yep.
And how it could be applied to development in a request we have. We certainly want the community space to be ready for the COs, but we would like to break it down by the groupings of buildings if possible. And if you go to the site plan, I can kind of give the reasoning for that.
Okay, go ahead.
So phase 1 includes building A, B, C, and D. We're going to build building A and B first. And the reason for that is construction traffic is going to come from North C Street to the left, not through the developed site. So we're going to work our way out of the site, and residents will be able to leave their buildings A and B through the hills once it's done. So we're hoping that the CO can be conditional on the completion of the community space that's earmarked for A and B. And then once C and D are complete, we can open up the second community space between, C and B, and also the path. And the reason we don't want to open the path up for A and B is because of construction traffic.
Construction going on. Yep, I agree. So I still would like the phase line change though, so that's still like we discussed here. But if the commission agrees that the trail system and in the wooded, can you pull that down, Dan, so I can see what it's called actually? We call that in the wooden recreation area, wooded recreation, does not as occurs prior to the COs for buildings. Go back up again and move the page again so I can see that COs for buildings C, D, and D. Does that work for you, Brandon?
Yeah, and also the isolated community space for C and D, if we could build that as part of C and D, and we just envision
that makes sense to me.
Occupied and safe.
All right, if everyone agrees on that in the commission, I'm comfortable with that C and D recreational space, obviously, you can't make that for the first buildings for A and B, but the lower portion be done, that you do that landscaping that's below A for B and for A and B, but the landscaping that's next to D and C, and then that trail into the woods is done for for COs for D and C.
Yes.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. So could you revise number 7 to take that into account?
So let me just do that. Okay, the northern edge walk should be completed and connected lower as part of. What I would say is don't look. Yes, but let me just read how it works so that I think we can just do this. The northern shall be completed and connected lower. So I always say the phase line should be revised to include the lowing walking trail and wouldn't as part of phase 1 built prior to CO for buildings C and D.
That's reasonable.
Okay, and I'll make sure that we meet the intent when I write up, because what I do is I will give Melinda exactly what we're talking about, these changes, and then I send them to her for the minutes. So I will tweak that wording.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
And we're also okay with extending that landscaping along Route 97.
Okay.
Great. Okay. And I guess we're ready to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that the application be approved with the modifications as discussed, which is the changing the phasing line and that associated recreation space for each building, for each phases of the building be constructed during that phase of those buildings, and that the trail lines also go with also have to be incorporated into constructed prior to a CO for A, B, C, and D. And then extending the landscaping along the front by Route 97. And I think, is that all, Deanna, that's changed in our?
And also that the access, utility, maintenance, grading, and construction easement documents be prepared and provided to the city for review and approval, and that they get filed at the time of the Mylars.
Okay.
And then all the other.
Okay, and then all the other issues. So those, that's my motion.
Okay,
Jason, I'd like to second that motion.
who seconded it?
Jason.
Jason seconded it, okay. And any discussion? Any discussion?
And I would just ask that the proposal conforms, the reason is conforms with section 6.5, 4 and 7.5 of the regs.
Okay, yep, for that reason right there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And hearing no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And is there any opposition or abstentions? Hearing none, it was approved unanimously. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Great project.
Appreciate it. Have a great night.
Yes, you too. Thank you.
You
Dan, can we go back to the agenda?
Absolutely. So we're extension requests. Still
None.
Bond reduction release requests, still none.
Not at this time. Nope.
Okay. Other business?
Nope.
None.
None. Okay. POCD, the Plan Implementation Committee meeting reminder is on the 8th of July. And that's
Yep, I'll be sending out Dan or myself in the next day or two. We'll be sending that out to you. So either tomorrow or on Monday. We are going to have it by Zoom. It looks like we're almost at the end of our POCD. Dan figured out, I think it's September we'll be done. And then we'll have to decide, we need some time as staff to work on all the comments that we've received over the last couple of years. And then we'll probably try to meet either quarterly or every 6 months to give you updates until we start working on the plan of conservation and, getting the funds, start figuring out internally how we're working on it. Okay?
okay. Sounds good. And
So we have no staff report for you this evening.
Move
But I
adjourned.
will tell you, well, hold on for a
Go
second.
ahead.
I just want to give a quick staff report. I guess there's none, but this is just really quickly is, we don't have any applications right now. Our deadline for next month is the 30th, which is the beginning of next week. So we may not need to have a meeting next month. However, there may be a referral from the council, and what I would like to do, it's not a difficult referral. It's about accepting of a road. So I may ask that we have a special meeting during a lunchtime or something like that, because I don't think it's controversial at all. But I'd rather cancel a night meeting in July if we don't have any reason to meet.
Good idea.
Okay.
All right. So that was my quick staff report.
okay, sounds good. So if there's nothing else, then I guess we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
I'll second it. Thank.
All those
Perfect.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Of course not. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Happy July,
Good
everybody.
night. I'll
All
see you
right,
at the
take care.
POCD.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dan.